Ladies and gentlemen, welcome for our 7th launch of the year from the Guyana Space Center, the second with Soyuz. For today's mission, Soyuz is set to deliver into a specific transfer orbit to Lagrange Point 2, one of the most technologically advanced satellites ever made in Europe, Gaia for the European Space Agency. Once at its final location, this spacecraft will take a census of about 1 billion stars with an extraordinary precision and enable European scientists to uncover the secrets of the Milky Way. Our launcher will carry a total payload mass slightly above 2 tons. It shall lift off at a specific and accurate time, set today at 6 hours, 12 minutes and 19 seconds local, in order to comply with Gaia mission requirements. From liftoff until spacecraft separation, the elapsed time will be about 42 minutes. I would like to thank warmly the European Space Agency for entrusting the launch of such a technological jewel that is Gaia to Arianespace once again. It will actually be the third time this year that we launch for ESA, first with Vega in May, an Earth observation mission with PROBAVE, then with Ariane 5, in June, a servicing mission to the International Space Station with automated transfer vehicle Albert Einstein, and finally with Soyuz today, a space science mission with Gaia. Arianespace is proud to enable today's Europe scientific community to start an amazing study aiming at understanding the history of our galaxy. No doubt that it will benefit to all of us down on Earth. But our 30-second Soyuz is now being readied for launch. So enjoy the show.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for today's live broadcast of Arianespace flight number 6 of Soyuz. The mission today, Arianespace will be flying on a Soyuz for the European Space Agency, a satellite called Gaia. Gaia is a star mapper, and we're going to find out all about Gaia in just a minute, so don't go away, because with us today is Timo Prusti, who is the project scientist. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're coming to you, as we always do, live and direct from the Jupiter Mission Control Center. This is the heart of the space base, and it's the center of all the action. We have plenty of action coming up on the broadcast, which is going to be beginning in a few short minutes. And you can follow all that action in English with Timo and with me, or in French with our French commentators who are already up in their skybox, Thierry Bouvard and Claude Bernas. Say hello, boys.
Bonjour à toutes, nous sommes effectivement fin prêts.
Bonjour à tous, stars. What stars? How many stars?
Gaia is actually a very democratic mission. It will detect any and all stars which are bright enough. And Gaia does not need very bright stars. And that's why we are going to observe a billion.
A billion stars in a 3D map. Only a small slice of the Milky Way galaxy, I think, is just 1%. However, there's a lot of information coming in. I am told enough to fill, it's hard to believe, 1 million CDs. Is that right?
Indeed. It's a huge amount of data of huge scientific value. And it's not only a 3D map, but it's also we get the motions. And it's the motions what we need to trace back the history and also have a look to the future.
All right, stay with the data for just a minute. The data comes down from Gaia to various centers across Europe. Then what happens? How is it treated? How is it processed?
It moves from the Mission Operations Center into the hands of a consortium, which is more than 400 European scientists working on the data, and they will analyze and process the data.
All right, now, where are we going to position Gaia to do all this observing? We can't just put her anywhere now, can we?
No, Gaia will start today its journey, and it will go to Lagrange 2 point, which is 1.5 million kilometers away from Earth, at the opposite direction from the Sun. And this is a very good position for astronomical measurements, because we don't want to see the heat nor the light from the Sun, from the Earth, nor from the moon. And the L2 point is optimum, because then they are all more or less at the same direction. And then we can turn the back to that and just look freely the rest of the universe.
Now, this is not the first time that ESA and Arianespace have used this Lagrange point. Some of you here today might even remember back in 2009 an ESA mission called Herschel-Planck, which went up on an Ariane 5 to roughly the same area. So this, where we're going today, is the spot for sky surveying. Now, take us inside the satellite and tell us about the instruments on board.
There are 3 instruments on board, but before going to the 3 instruments, there is a sky mapper. And the sky mapper has the task to detect all the sources we want to observe. And after that detection, we do astrometry, photometry, and spectroscopy.
All right, last question, because we're already out of time. Sum it up for us. What's the most important thing that people should keep in mind about Gaia?
If one really has to pick one thing which is above everything, is the distance to stars. That is something we cannot do from the ground.
All right, Timo Prusti, everybody, many thanks. You got the basics. You're going to get more in the mission coming up right now. Remember, follow it in French or in English. We're going to make our way up to our skybox. In the meantime, we're going to go to an interview now with the Director General of the European Space Agency, Jean-Jacques Dordain. Enjoy the broadcast, everybody.
Bonjour, nous sommes ici ensemble.
So hello, we're here again at the Gaia Space Center for a new scientific mission from ESA, Gaia, the Sky Surveyor, following on from Hipparcos, which was launched in 1989. But in relation to Hipparcos, we're going up a gear in a way, because with Gaia we're going to be cataloguing more than 1 billion objects and stars in the Milky Way. And this cartography will be done in 3 dimensions with position and speed, which require technological prowess, of course, in terms of telescopes and CCD cameras. It's the 6th mission for ESA this year. 4 missions from here at the GSC. In May, we were together for the launch of Proba V with Vega. In June, there was the launch of the ATV. July, the launch of AlphaSat, and today Gaia. And as well, we had the Luca Parmitano mission and Swarm, meaning that it was a very busy year. Next year will be a very busy year as well, with the launch of Galileo, Sentinel, IXV, but we'll be back together for this. For the time being, I hope you all have an excellent launch.
Welcome back. Joshua with Timo here. We want to start moving back into Jupiter, introducing some of the people who make the mission happen. This is the flight director at Arianespace High Command, Stéphane Israel. And he is supported by Louis Laurent. And you'll see Patrick Loire next to him, who is the Arianespace director of the facilities here in Kourou. He's usually the first link. If anything untoward comes up, he hears about it first. Edward Perez, who's the top technical person, the living technical memory of the Ariane flights, and the deputy of Roscosmos, Mikhail Kylov, sitting with them. This is the highest technical authority. Any problem, anything untoward coming up, there's Patrick Loire. During the countdown, these men will make the final decisions as to what to do. Their teams across the base report to them, and you'll see them on the phones. Soyuz.
Soyuz stands 46 meters tall and is in 4 stages. We will come back and describe each in turn as it's functioning, so you can follow the vehicle as it crosses the Atlantic.
Basically, what's going to happen is this. Following liftoff, the powered phase of the Soyuz's first 3 stages will last about 9 minutes. Then the upper composite, which is called the frigate upper stage, with Gaia aboard, will be separated, and the 3 lower stages fall back into the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. Frigate carries out 2 powered flight phases. There will be 2 burns. We'll get back to each of these as they're happening, so you can follow the mission as Soyuz heads across the Atlantic. We're going to go inside the fairing now. We can take a look at Gaia. Go ahead.
In the fairing, Gaia does not look the same as in its operational condition. The payload and the service modules are hidden behind the sunshield, which is during the launch in its folded configuration. After separation, the sunshield will open up to protect Gaia from the heat impact from the sun, and at the same time provide energy through the solar arrays at the backside of the shield.
Klutch na start is the next milestone coming up. You can hear the DDO calling out these milestones. The DDO you'll see here in a minute, that's Amy Sipp. She is the Range Operations Manager, and it's her voice that you'll be hearing before liftoff and after liftoff as the important things happen. You're looking down into Jupiter there. These are where the technical operatives are working. Behind them is the part of Jupiter where we are, which is where the VIPs and invited guests are. Now, our cameras are here in Jupiter mainly, but there are a lot of other places and a lot of other people at work tonight, and this is one of them. This is the Soyuz Launch Control Center.
There are 3 teams, each with a Russian and a European team leader. The launch operations manager heads up the first group. He's Jean-Claude Garot tonight. His Russian equivalent is Alexandre Sherevan.
3 teams we mentioned, one responsible for operations and a second team responsible for flight readiness of the Soyuz launcher. They sign off on that, and I believe they signed off on the rollout that happened yesterday. And a third team follows the countdown from a quality point of view, all according to established procedures. About, in all, 120 people or so working up at the launch center, much closer to the launch pad than we are. Here in Jupiter, we're about 20 kilometers away, but they are right there. We want to say hello to the ESA Council, who are following us in Paris. Isaac is taking the broadcast also. You have many friends out there.
Yeah, and here we have a view of Isaac, who has a crucial role in the mission, and also a very crucial role after the separation of the satellite.
Another place that's busy at the space base is in one of the satellite preparation buildings here at the base. They have a link into Jupiter to monitor the satellite. The link extends out to ESOC as well, I think, so people there and here in Jupiter know exactly what's happening inside the fairing with Gaia as she awaits her liftoff. 2.5 minutes to go on the very last Arianespace launch of the year, the second Soyuz. There is Amy Sipp's voice calling out that the electrical umbilicals on the satellites have been released. We didn't get a shot of them, but we'll see another umbilical dropping shortly. On the left, the green status panels, these give the go or no-go status of all the situations of all the operations here in the base. They're green now, which means we're right where we should be. Anything unexpected comes up, one of these will go red. You can see them all there, the launcher, launch base, the satellites, the weather, and everything. We're doing fine. Coming up on 1 minute and 50 seconds, Timo, you're going to leave us, I think.
I will
shortly. Yeah.
Go and watch the launch.
You're going to watch the launch. All right, don't get lost and try to make it back. This is Timo's second time in French Guiana, everybody, and he's never seen a launch. Been working on Gaia for 7 years. So he's going to make his way outside to watch the liftoff, as some of the people here in the hall are going to do. Anybody who has been here before, you know there are 2 big balconies on either side of Jupiter, and you get to enjoy a fine view of the launcher, especially if she makes her way east, like tonight. Soyuz, like Ariane, usually will fly right over the Jupiter building. Amy Sipp is going to call out the 1 minute mark, and we'll be into the final 60 seconds of the countdown.
Top, H0-1 minute.
We're in the final moments of final countdown for the 6th Soyuz to fly from French Guiana. Excitement here has been high all week, as you can expect. Another of those moments now as we approach liftoff. The ignition sequence, 20 engines are lit at once. The ignition sequence is in 3 stages. Part of it is a sequence from minus 17 seconds down to minus 6 seconds, during which the engines are tested. There are the arms rolling away. That's one of the final moments. At minus 15 seconds is the first controlled ignition. At minus 7 seconds is another one at about half pressure. And then at minus 3 seconds, the order is given for the third and final phase. There's the gantry arms going. Soyuz lifting off beautifully from French Guiana, beginning her 1,813th mission and her 6th from her new home here. Fine shots, always impressive, no matter how many times you see Soyuz powering into the sky over French Guiana. Now, you know it's been raining all week here, but the skies cleared for the liftoff just this afternoon, giving us a fine view of things, as you can see. We're heading east, all out over the Atlantic. All is perfect on board, Amy Sip is saying. 313 tons at liftoff. That's less than half the mass of the Ariane 5. Remember, Soyuz is complementary, not a competitor to Ariane 5. She's lifting one satellite, a payload weighing 2 tons. Ariane 5 can lift 10 tons. The boosters and the second stage are burning now. The boosters, there are 4 boosters, they make up the first stage. The boosters weigh 45 tons each. Total mass 178 tons. The second, or the core stage, is similar to the boosters. Its ignition occurred on the launch pad, as you saw. All is
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Normal on board, the DDO is saying. We're coming up on separation of the boosters. That's something you'll probably be able to see because the visibility is so good. And you'll hear Amy Sip call out, that looks like deseparation. See the 4 boosters, the 4 points of light falling away from the main point of light, which continues to burn, which is the second stage. And the DDO has called out confirmation of the booster separation. Everything functioning beautifully. You can see the boosters twinkling on the left-hand side of the vapor trail there as Soyuz continues her journey eastward across the Atlantic. The boosters will fall back into the Atlantic. Coming up on separation of the fairing in about a minute. That's the next milestone. You're watching the final Arianespace mission of the year. It's the 40th payload for ESA, launched by Arianespace, and the 25th satellite dedicated to science and the study of the universe. The 3rd Arianespace launch for ESA this year. We launched 1 each of the Ariane family, Proba 5 on Vega in May, ATV-5 on Ariane in June, and tonight. And Timo is back. You are grinning from ear to ear. How was it out there?
I hope I can speak. It is such an emotional moment.
Really? 7 years working on the project, and you finally see her leaving the Earth?
Yeah, and it was like rising the sun, and you get first the light, and then you see the separation of the boosters.
You saw separation of the boosters, and because we saw it here on the screen, it was very clear.
And it was also visible from the balcony, and they were twinkling like small stars. It was impressive.
And the noise?
The noise was coming later because we are, of course, quite a distance away from the...
Yeah, you get the delay.
You get the delay.
So what impressed you the most? It was the light, I guess, huh?
I think it's the light and also the speed. The speed, how it goes, crosses the sky. And luckily we had clear skies. It was a beautiful moment.
Very good. Moment of live TV there. Take a minute and look on the upper left-hand part of your screen. You see the cursor crawling up the curve there. There are actually 2 curves. One is the planned trajectory of Soyuz, and the other is the real-time trajectory. As long as they're superimposed one on another, we're right where we should be. Below that, you can see, half of it seems cut off on my screen, but maybe you can see a little better, altitude, and on the very bottom, vitesse. Vitesse is speed. You can see our altitude, 139 kilometers, and on the very bottom, 3.47 kilometers per second, which is our speed. We've had fairing separation. We're coming up on 3rd stage burn. One particularity of the Soyuz vehicle, whereas with Ariane, we separate the lower stage before igniting the upper stage. Soyuz does just the opposite. You saw that. 3rd stage ignited 2 seconds before. Here we go.
Largage de la section arrière.
Yeah, all these confirmations of the separation of the 2nd stage and ignition of the 3rd stage coming in with a bit of delay, which is quite normal because of the time the telemetry takes to come in. You see the exposed gold box on the right. That is Gaia exposed to the elements.
normal du moteur du troisième
Under
étage.
that is the third stage and the fourth stage. Third stage continuing to burn now.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
All is normal on board, everything functioning perfectly as we are being picked up by our downrange tracking stations. You can see them there. The first one, Gaia in yellow, that's right behind us here in Kourou. And then Natal is in Brazil, Ascension Island out in the Atlantic, and Libreville is in Africa. More of the mission in a moment. But now, the latest news from Arianespace, the first of 3 parts. On August 29th, Arianespace successfully launched for the 57th straight time, delivering 2 new telecommunication satellites, Eutelsat 25B SILSAT-1 for Eutelsat and the Qatari operator SILSAT, and GSAT-7 for ISRO, the Indian Space and Research Organization. It was the first satellite ever for the nation of Qatar. December 3rd, Stefan Israel, Arianespace's chief executive officer, was at the Washington Space Business Roundtable. He once again stressed the importance of ties with telecommunications satellite builders and operators in the U.S. The meeting was also the occasion to note the reliability, flexibility, and quality of the Ariane family of launchers. 2013 has been a record year for Arianespace commercially. This year, Arianespace consolidated its position as the world's #1 provider of launch services and solutions by signing over 20 launch contracts. These are for all types of missions.
2013 has been a very good commercial year, and I must thank our customers who once again have chosen Arianespace as the reference launch services provider. So far, and when I record this message, we still have a few weeks to improve our performance. We have signed 14 contracts for the launch of commercial satellites in GTO. We have to go back to the year 2000 to find the same number of contracts for a single year, and even at that time, it was on 2 vehicles, Ariane 4 and Ariane 5. For non-GTO missions, we have signed 1 contract for a launch of Vega, and between now and when you listen to me in French Guiana, I hope to sign in addition for a couple of launches. These contracts amount today for 2013 to €1,200 million, and I want once again to thank the customers who made the choice of the reliability, availability, and quality of service. Finally, as we are close to the end of the year, I wish you all happy holidays and all the best for 2014.
The Brazilian company Visiona Tecnologia Espacial signed on December 12th with Arianespace for launch of its satellite SGDC for the Brazilian Defense Ministry. Launch is scheduled for mid-2016 atop an Ariane 5. There will be more news coming up later on. During the first part of that news, we were picked up by our very first downrange tracking station over the border in Natal, and that's in Brazil. All of Soyuz trajectory has been designed to be followed from the ground, of course. The launcher is sending right now radar and telemetry back, and a number of stations keep a constant watch. Now, what's telemetry?
Well, telemetry contains all the information what we receive from the spacecraft. So at this moment, the telemetry contains just monitoring information that everything is fine with the spacecraft. But for science, it's also very relevant. And for science, we have a problem we had to tackle. Namely, we have enormous cameras on board and we make huge images. But we cannot get all the data down. So what we have to do a decision on board that to send only the relevant scientific information of the stars. And even that is not enough. We still have to compress the data and decompress it.
So who makes that decision?
That is an evaluation of balancing that what is scientifically relevant, and then we have to optimize.
All right, all these parameters we're talking about, indicators of the vehicle's health, performance in flight, coming from the pressure and temperature centers, accelerometers. Am I saying that right? Accelerometer?
Yeah, that is.
All right. They record all her functions, everything throughout the flight. Third stage cutoff has been announced, and we should see that animation coming up. All is functioning normally on board. Soyuz carrying the ESA star tracker. We're awaiting now confirmation of the first frigate burn. That should be coming up in about 20 seconds. Maybe we'll get the confirmation a little bit later, but the scheduled time is 10:22.
For Gaia, we use 2 frigate burns. There is first a short one, or a little bit more than 2 minutes, and this is guiding the satellite in a circular orbit. And then there is a coasting time of about 9 minutes.
Also called a ballistics phase. We'll get back and talk about that as it happens.
And after that we have the second burn, and this one is a long one. It is lasting more than 15 minutes, and that is already putting Gaia in the orbit.
Back with more shortly, but now as promised, the latest news from Arianespace Part 2. On December 14th, the French President François Hollande paid his first visit to the Guyana Space Center. He spoke here in Jupiter and lent his support and praise to Arianespace and to Europe's space efforts.
Yes, putting spacecraft in orbit is a wonderful mission. And I want to pay tribute to the whole space industry here today. It's very important to stress that it's not just a question of setting up a team. I mean, the team's here. But what you need to do is to get the team working together. And this cohesion, this ability to undertake projects together has led to the successes of today and will lead to the successes of tomorrow. Success. First of all, it means having half of the worldwide market. Arianespace is the world leader in commercial space transport. And its contribution to foreign trade is 500 million euros. Ariane inspires trust, and rightly so. 57 successes. This performance is unique in the world. And we owe this to the thoroughness and conscientiousness of the engineers, technicians, and operators.
We are coming toward the end of the first frigate burn, and you'll hear again the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, call out that confirmation. The mission today, as Timo said, requires 2 burns of the engine. The very first Soyuz to fly from French Guiana in October 2 years ago, like tonight's, had 1 reburn. But the second launch in December of 2011, you can see the engine shutting down there, was a much more complex mission, and it launched 6 passengers, and it required 4 burns in all. As we mentioned, this new version of the frigate can burn up to 20 times, which means we can have very complex missions. With the first burn over, as Timo said, we're going to coast for about 9 minutes, and we're going to reignite the engine for the second burn. And the second burn, you said, was 15.5 minutes, right? And then that followed by a second ballistics phase. We're waiting to be picked up by our next downrange tracking station in just a moment. That's on Ascension Island in the Atlantic. Tiny spot out there, about 10 square kilometers, belonging to the UK. NASA had a post out there until, I think, 1989. They closed it, and ESA, the European Space Agency, decided to build its own post. A lot has been happening inside Arianespace lately, and going now to the third part of the latest company news. Back with more. With France's President Hollande looking on, Arianespace signed with Astrium for production of 18 additional Ariane 5 vehicles, adding to the 35 originally ordered in 2009. The contract, worth 2 billion euros, is for launchers that will fly in 2017.
Que l'on regarde du côté d'Ariane, de Soyuz ou de Vega, les dernières
Whether we look at Ariane, Soyuz or Vega, recent weeks have been both rich and promising. For Ariane 5, the European Space Agency and the CNES have started work adapting the upper part of Ariane 5. This has been made possible through funding set up as part of France's plan for investment in the future. Activities have been launched in industry, and the 2-meter height increase in available volume will be available within 18 months. Finally, here in Guyana, 2 launchers are being integrated in our buildings. They're ready to begin their final preparation phase, so that within the first few weeks of 2014, we'll be able to go ahead with 2 Ariane 5 launches. For Soyuz, tomorrow we'll start preparing 2014, which is looking particularly busy, with at least 4 missions planned for the observation of the Earth, navigation and telecommunications. 2 launches for 2014 arrived at the Guyana Space Station last Friday from Russia. One of them will be used for the Sentinel-1A mission at the beginning of next year. Finally, for Vega, operation of the second launch in May confirmed that we have an operational launch system. And our customers have understood this. To respond to their demand, we have placed an order with ELV for 10 Vega launchers. This was signed on the 20th of November in Rome at the Franco-Italian Intergovernmental Summit. So today, 14 Vegas are being manufactured. With 63 launches in total on order, the coming years are going to be very busy. To respond to this very ambitious program, we've decided to, and actually started, constructing a new filling building which will be located at the Soyuz launch complex. This will enable us to manage with greater robustness and flexibility our launch program, and also to increase the number of launches which can be made from the GSC. This will be available in 2015 and is part of our continuing improvement program, which drives us to adapt our offer so that we can provide our clients with the best services possible.
It's a busy time here at the Space Base, where we are gearing up for the next 3 Ariane 5 missions for early 2014. Flight 217 will carry ABS-2 and Athena Fidus. Flight 216 will orbit Amazonas 4A and Astra 5B. After these 2 launches of telecommunication satellites, Ariane 5 has yet another scientific mission, the ATV. Flight 218 will send the 5th and final European cargo vessel to the International Space Station. It is named Georges Lemaitre, after the Belgian scientist. Timo, if you have recovered from your emotions at watching the liftoff, I'd like to have you elaborate on the initial points you made downstairs at the start of the broadcast, because we have a little more time. You mentioned the Gaia mission involves over 400 scientists and engineers across Europe, and they're going to be called on to perform all the operations necessary to do the calculations.
That's true, and the reason why we need so many people is that there is such a wealth of information in the Gaia data that we need the expertise of various astronomers who can cope with all the algorithms to deduce the data. But it's not only astronomy. You have to think that we observe 40 million stars on an average day.
On an average day.
So there is also a problem of computational speed. So it's also computer experts.
Coming up next, a film on how Gaia will map the Milky Way.
Gaia will look at the galaxy from an extremely stable orbit far away from the Earth's atmosphere around the Lagrange point 2. To cover an area as large as possible with detailed precision, Gaia will scan the sky with 2 telescopes set at a 106.5-degree angle, while at the same time gyrating on a tipped slant called a precession axis.
By combining the spinning and the precession, the spacecraft is able to scan the full sky, actually more than one time. It is scanned something around 70 times in the full life of the spacecraft, which is 5 years.
Gaia will have 3 instruments on board that will allow it to map the sky in unprecedented detail. An astrometric instrument will measure the position of stars, while a photometer will deduce the temperature and chemical composition of celestial objects by analyzing their color spectrum. And finally, a spectrometer will measure the speed at which objects are moving towards or away from us. It's the combination of all 3 measurements that will enable scientists to get a better understanding of the evolution of the Milky Way.
Never before there is a kind of large survey, an homogeneous survey, like the Gaia will be. So the combination of the properties of the stars plus the motion of the stars will tell us families of stars, and make us to reconstruct the history of the galaxy. But the key point is this large amount of data with such high accuracy in the positions and distances and motions.
But it's not just the stars that Gaia will be mapping. Its data harvest will be of almost inconceivable size and is expected to contain the discovery of thousands of new celestial objects, including asteroids, comets, and exoplanets, as well as stars of all ages. It's likely that the extent and precision of Gaia's measurements will make its findings the main reference for scientists for years to come.
Almost all of the fields in astrophysics will be affected or will be in some way, let us say, touched by the Gaia observations.
Gaia will help us delve into the archaeology of the Milky Way, helping us to understand the history, the formation, the evolution, and maybe even the origin of our own galaxy.
During the film, we received the signal from our next tracking station in Libreville, that's in Gabon, in West Africa. Timo, 1 billion stars is 1% of the Milky Way. Why do we need to look at so many stars?
Actually, the answer is already in your question. Depending what direction you look, billion sounds really a lot. But if you indeed take into account that it's only 1% of the stars, so you can also ask the question other way around, is it enough? Is it big enough sample to understand our Milky Way?
Because when you say 1% of the Milky Way, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you say billion stars instead of that sounds.
Exactly. That is the dilemma a little bit.
We're waiting for confirmation of the second frigate ignition, which is due up in about 5 seconds, but again with the telemetry delay, which again is normal. There it is on the screen, so you see the scheduled time of the ignition was right on time, and we'll have confirmation of that probably in about 10 or 20 seconds. Second frigate burn lasts about 15 minutes. Now, I have another question. The mission sending Gaia to the Lagrange point, which we talked about. I read that one advantage of this orbit is that it offers a stable thermal environment. Okay. Gaia will be placed in a Lissajous type orbit. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. That's to avoid solar eclipses. What is a Lissajous type orbit?
It is an orbit which is around the L2 because the advantage of L2 is that it's gravitationally very stable, so you can keep the spacecraft easily around with little consumption of fuel. But if you would be exactly on the spot, you would be always in the shadow of the Earth, and that would not have any energy.
Gaia is the successor to an earlier ESA star mapper put up by Ariane called Hipparcos. Our next film now will tell you all about it.
When our ancestors first looked up into the night sky, they must have wondered at the band of stars and diffuse light crossing the heavens above them. It probably looked like a distant constellation, but we now know that our planet Earth is part of this constellation known as the Milky Way. But it's only through the science of astrometry, the measuring of distances and movements of stars, that we're able to map our place in our galaxy and, by extension, in the universe. The Greek astronomer Hipparchos was the first to map the Milky Way. 2,000
years ago, he made the first catalogue of stars, which was an important catalogue which was there up to the Middle Age. And he did with the naked eyes, therefore was really impressive. He could go to magnitude 6. And then with the development of a telescope, with Galileo and the first telescope, astronomer could measure more stars and with the higher precision.
While Hipparchos mapped 1,000 objects and charted them on the sky, by the end of the 16th century, another astronomer, Tycho Brahe, created a catalogue of 1,000 stars with a factor of precision 100 times better than what was done by Hipparchos. More recently, in 1967, a Frenchman called Pierre Lacroute revived astrometry with the proposal to place a telescope on a satellite above the Earth's atmosphere. In 1980, realizing the importance to science of this idea, ESA decided to endorse this project, which would eventually be called Hipparchos. I really thought that there was the possibility of doing something in space with astrometry. We worked hard to imagine what methods to use, and then the Space Agency took up the project. And then after the work of many astronomers and engineers, it became the highly successful Hipparchos project. The launch of Hipparchos in 1989 marked a major step forward in astrometry, one that produced results about 10,000 times more accurate than those of Tycho Brahe 400 years before. By placing a telescope in space, ESA was able to measure the position of stars without the distortion of the Earth's atmosphere, which had previously deformed measurements taken from the surface of Earth. 4 years after its launch, Hipparcos exceeded all expectations by producing 1 million bits of information, which after being received by ground stations in Germany, Australia and the United States, went into the biggest computation in the history of astronomy to produce the Hipparcos and Tycho catalogues. These catalogues of measurements pinpointed the position of more than 100,000 stars to high precision and more than 1 million stars to lesser precision, and as predicted, became the reference for astronomers for the last 15 years.
We are not using our Malindi station that's in Kenya today, but instead we're using a station in Mauritius. It's an ESA outpost, and this station will follow Soyuz while she's flying over the Indian Ocean between the Libreville station, which we passed over previously, and Perth in Australia, which is also part of the ESA network. We have some more time, so maybe you can describe, Timo, the spacecraft for us now in a bit more detail. What's new on Gaia that we haven't seen before?
There are many new things in the spacecraft, and I can just choose one example, and I take the phased array antenna. And this is something which had to be developed specifically for Gaia, because we don't want to have an antenna which is moving. And we have a spinning satellite, so you have a problem. How do you get the data down? That the spacecraft is moving, but antenna should be fixed. So we have an electronically steered antenna which changes beam to beam without any moving part.
Now, this new technology aboard Gaia happens to be the subject of our next film. We'll be back.
Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is made up of around 100 billion stars. To understand its evolution, we need to know exactly where we stand in this mass of constantly moving and changing celestial objects. To do this, we use astrometry, the science of measuring the position, distance and movement of stars around us. And astrometry is just about to take a giant leap forward with the launch of ESA's new space telescope, Gaia. Gaia will make it possible to measure some billion stars of our Milky Way with roughly a millisecond level of accuracy, a precision never achievable before.
If you take a euro coin and you put on the moon and you look from the Earth, the angular opening of this euro coin is exactly 10 microseconds. And this is the capability of Gaia, which are beyond what you can believe.
The secret of achieving such precision is in the development of several groundbreaking new technologies specific to the Gaia mission. Because many of the stars being measured are extremely distant and very faint, 400,000 times fainter than can be seen with the naked eye, Gaia houses an extremely sensitive camera, 100 times more powerful than a standard camera. Another important factor in the accuracy of Gaia's measurements is the creation of a stable environment. Gaia's 10 mirrors fold and focus the light beams coming from its 2 telescopes along a path until they finally hit the focal plane of CCD detectors. For all these elements to remain stable, they're built into a structure that won't be affected by the often turbulent conditions in space.
And that is done by using a very new innovative material, which is called silicon carbide. It's a combination of silicium and carbon, which is cooked at 3000 degrees. And it becomes as stiff and as hard as diamond. And with that one, we can build optical bench, we can build a telescope, which is so stable, which is not moving at all in space, even under the worst thermal environment.
But stability is also about temperature. As well as choosing a thermally calm location known as Lagrange 2 for Gaia's orbit, ESA has developed a deployable circular sunshield, a unique system for protecting the spacecraft. Over 10 meters in diameter, the sunshield will always face the sun and guarantee Gaia is in the shade and at a stable temperature. And finally, Gaia is equipped with a specially developed propulsion system, a system designed to minimize disruption and maximize stability and precision of direction. Thanks to all these developments, Gaia will have unprecedented precision to measure the stars in our galaxy. It will provide scientists from all fields of astrophysics with a new reference catalogue, and in particular, this will enable them to make a new 3D map of the Milky Way.
Yes, a 3D map of the Milky Way. Now, why do we need 3 dimensions?
Yeah, it's like movies. We are having a flat movies to 2D, and then we move into 3D to get the depth. So in Gaia is actually exactly the same reason. We want to have depth, but the scientific reason here is, of course, that we want to have the distances to stars. And that is the 3D element of the game.
Okay, Gaia will also study star movement. Now, why is that important?
There the importance is that our Milky Way has been constructed by cannibalizing smaller galaxies. And
cannibalizing?
Yes, they are sort of eaten up by our Milky Way. And the reason why we want to prove these theories is to try to see the traces of this happening. And Gaia data can do it if we have the kinematic information, the motions of the stars.
Good. Our next film takes a look at how Europe's different space agencies got together around the Gaia program. Gaia is a European project worth 740 million euros, not counting the cost of processing all the data. The sum was split among ESA's different contributing nations, with Germany leading.
First of all, Germany is contributing to overall costs of the Gaia missions. 4 German universities take part in the mission, and they contribute in the first way software packages to exploit data coming from the Gaia mission and to support the Gaia's operations.
The launch of Gaia today represents the end of one phase, but another chapter in her story is just beginning. Specialists across Europe will soon start collecting the tons of data she'll be sending back during her 5-year life. This includes Europe's top universities.
So the UK Space Agency has made a big contribution through a group of UK institutions led by Cambridge University, the Institute of Astronomy, to prepare the way for using this petabyte of data that we're going to have access to. And although the professional astronomers are looking forward to using all of this data, there's also a chance for the general public, even schools, to get involved, because there are going to be so many different objects that we've never been seen before, because Gaia can see objects far, far fainter than the human eye. And so the excitement will be for some schools to be able to do follow-up observations, confirm what a particular object is in the sky, and maybe even get it named after their organisation. So right from the professional astronomers all through to the schools, I think Gaia is going to be really exciting for everyone.
Mapping 1 billion stars in the Milky Way in 3D is an ambitious project. Gaia will provide over 50 times as much information as Hipparcos, an earlier star mapper launched by Ariane for ESA in 1989. This requires a big technological leap on the part of the French space agency CNES.
Gaia is something extraordinary. I was here in Guyana in August 1989 when we launched Hipparcos. What a long way covered since then. Because at the time we were saying that it was so precise that it could observe a pea in Lille from Marseille. And today the pea is the quarter of the thickness of a hair. This shows how much progress we've made and also the computing power we will need to interpret Gaia's data. This computing power is prepared in Toulouse by the Information Systems Division of CNES with sophisticated technology such as big data, which gives us Facebook and Google and will give us Gaia's star catalogue, 1 billion stars in a few months.
Gaia's Sky Survey gets underway in May 2014. All right, tell us about the Sky Survey. What will happen once we start surveying the stars with Gaia?
Yeah, as soon as we have the spacecraft commissioned, that everything is working and also calibrated, we start the survey. And the survey is actually just doing all the time the same. That is the principle of Gaia. And we will see every roughly 4 months the full sky. And we need all these 5 years of data to be combined in order to get the final catalog out from the data.
So we don't start surveying for a couple of weeks or months, or how long does it take to get set up?
Yeah, it really requires the full time of 5 years observing. A few months would not give the result.
All right, let's hear from Astrium now, prime contractors for the Gaia satellite. Gaia is the 106th payload launched by Arianespace for Astrium. Tell us about some of the challenges that Gaia is facing or has faced.
Yeah, we have been facing many challenges, and I can just take an example, one challenge which is quite interesting. We need to know the orbit of Gaia itself very accurately, because otherwise we cannot deduce the positions of stars. And the traditional methods are of very high accuracy, but not sufficient. And so we have a special campaign to observe Gaia from the ground every day, just to determine the orbit. And this requires a group of 5 people.
We're coming up on the end of the second frigate burn. There you see she's shutting down right on time, due at 36 minutes and 59 seconds. During, the vehicle is now at 873 kilometers altitude, roughly. I don't know if the figure, have I got the same figure? Well, that again, with the telemetry delay, you see it on the left, roughly. The point I want to make is you see how high she's climbed in the last 15 minutes, and you can see it on the screen, on the upper screen. You see she's just going practically vertically. At the beginning of the burn, she was at 173 kilometers. So she's gone 700 kilometers in such a short time. That's the purpose of these burns, as you mentioned. The frigate orbiter is now beginning a series of orientation maneuvers to place it in position to be able to separate Gaia where she's supposed to go. Separation due in about 4 minutes. ESA and Science, Giotto was the 1985 Comet flyby. That was the very first Ariane ESA Science payload. I want to get back to you to talk about another one in a minute. But for now, our final film, look at ESOC.
The European Space Operations Centre, ESOC, at Darmstadt in Germany, is where ESA operates most of its satellites, be it in low Earth orbits for the swarm satellites, medium Earth orbit for Galileo, deep space planetary orbits for Mars Express and Venus Express, or an orbit around the Sun 1.5 million kilometres from Earth for Gaia. ESOC takes centre stage when a mission enters the launch and early orbit phase, or LEOP, after a spacecraft separates from the launcher.
Our ground stations in Perth and New Norcia will be the first one to acquire the signal from the spacecraft after separation, which will be launch plus 42 minutes approximately. And at that point in time, we'll be checking that the separation has occurred and that the automatic sequence on board has triggered and is executing all of the activities, making sure that the attitude of the spacecraft is acquired and pointing to the Sun to recharge the batteries. And thereafter, very critical activity for us is the deployment of the sunshield.
So after sunshield deployment, the ground will have confirmed telemetry reception, will be commanding the spacecraft, and the urgent activity is to perform the Day 2 manoeuvre. The Day 2 manoeuvre actually happens at 27 hours after separation. We'll configure the spacecraft to know the attitude, we'll have determined the orbit, and we'll fire the engines for half an hour to raise the altitude, the apogee altitude, from 935,000 to around 1.2 million. This puts us in the correct trajectory for around 20 days' time, when we will do the L2 insertion burn, which will be the last of the very critical activities. 4.5 months after that, we will have switched on and commissioned the payload, and the science operations will begin.
Since its creation in 1967, ESA's Flight Operations Control Centre has been handling spacecraft through all the complex mission phases. This includes mission analysis, flight dynamics, simulations, monitoring performance, telemetry and communications, and maintaining all onboard software. But the launch can only happen if ESOC gives the go-ahead. And this is also where it's confirmed that the satellite and its payload have separated from the launcher. It's why ESOC is at the heart of all ESA launches.
Now, I think there's one critical milestone coming up that they didn't talk about in the film, and that's the sunshade, isn't it?
Yeah, they did mention it very briefly, so it's good to remind again of this one. So after separation, it's not really yet the end of the mission launch phase. We have to do still the sunshade deployment, and that's a very critical phase, which will be controlled by our colleagues at ESOC.
During the film on ESOC, which is in Germany, by the way, the European Space Operations Center, during the film, the telemetry signal was picked up by the ESA station in Perth, just as we predicted. We are coming up on separation of Gaia, due at 41 and 59 seconds. She'll be flying at just under 2,000 kilometers altitude. With 20 seconds to go, again, this is one of those moments of high concentration for everyone here. I won't ask you what you're feeling, because I can imagine what you're feeling. At ESOC and elsewhere, today represents years of work for some of the people here. So the mood, very focused here in Jupiter.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Although most of the people have gone through this before, it's still an intense time. We're waiting for the confirmation to come in on Gaia separation. The confirmations have been coming in.
Séparation du satellite Gaia.
There you are, with about a 10-second delay, and that's more or less what we had. There's the good news. Soyuz has successfully separated her passenger Gaia. So what are you feeling right now? Do you mind my asking?
It is a nice feeling. It has all gone very fine so far, so I'm happy of this one.
So from the tense minutes just moments ago, you can see the change here in Jupiter. You heard the applause, very buoyant all across the Space Center as Gaia is pushed away from the mothership, beginning her life. All across the Space Center and at all the points and posts where people are working or following the launcher, like at ESOC, as we mentioned, but there are many, many other places. Work is just beginning, or soon will be, at the different ground stations for Gaia and at the other ESA sites. We're going to go to one replay. We should have another replay in a moment. Before we do that, now the Gaia is up, what's going to be happening? The first day is the initialization maneuvers, right?
Yeah, we are going to be now for 4 days in launch and early operation phase, and after the separation there is an automatic sequence which will be done, and there is, for example, activation of telemetry, sun pointing is established, and attitude control. The thermal control will be configured, and the sunshield will be deployed.
And then on day 2 we have the transfer orbit maneuver, just one transfer orbit maneuver, not
there is in principle only one, but there is a possibility to do a small correction further down.
Here's another replay from a closer angle. And then finally on days 3 and 4, the final, what they call LEOPS, early orbit missions, the key spacecraft units will be started.
Yes, we are at the early phases. One of the important things is to thermally control the payload to keep optical parts warmer, so that the outgassing doesn't give any trouble, so that all the material which is outgassing doesn't stick to the optical surfaces.
And as chief scientist, you're going to be following that
definitely
closely. We're waiting now for the traditional post-launch speeches. We'll be hearing from Stefan Israel, Ariane's chairman and chief executive, also from Alvaro Jimenez, ESA's science director, and from one or two other persons. These gentlemen I mentioned will be shortly making their ways out from behind the fishbowl, as we call it, to join us on this side in Jupiter, the Red Room. The podium and the microphones are being set up, or are set up already. Mr. Israel is no doubt shaking hands, extending and receiving congratulations, maybe exchanging cigars with colleagues. That's quite a tradition here, cigars and champagne. In about 50 minutes, we won't be here to see it, but frigate will be passivized, which means the tanks will be emptied of their fuel. This is a maneuver that lasts about 7 minutes. Frigate will be at that point about 17,000 kilometers above the Earth. I see Stefan Israel has reached the podium, and his will be the next voice you hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is always a special feeling for Arianespace to hear the Range Operations Director announce spacecraft separation. Today, this feeling is intensified by the nature of the payload that the Soyuz has just delivered to orbit. Indeed, Gaia will take a census of about 1 billion stars with an extraordinary precision that exceeds not only the dreams of ancient astronomers, but also goes beyond the performance of its predecessor, Hipparcos, launched by Ariane 4 almost 25 years ago. Make no mistake, we are at the dawn of revolutionizing our understanding of the history of the Milky Way. Today's launch is the 6th Soyuz launch in French Guiana. It is the latest in an unbroken series of flawless commercial and institutional missions for various applications, ranging from navigation to Earth observation, from telecommunication to space science. These accomplishments clearly show that the Soyuz is a living legend and the most versatile launch vehicle in the world. Today's launch is also the 5th Soyuz launch from the CSG dedicated to space science for ESA and CNES. I would like to praise the Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos, today represented by Mr. Rylov, Deputy Head of Roscosmos, for its support to Arianespace in its primary mission, which is to give to our institutions the access they require for developing applications useful to us down on Earth. Congratulations also to our prime contractor, TSSKB Progress, who provides the 3-stage vehicle and the fairing, and to NPO Lavochkin, designer and manufacturer of the frigate upper stage. You all form part of a dream team, which is the heart of the successful partnership between Russia and Europe, which began more than 17 years ago with Starsem. Of course, I am grateful to ESA for entrusting Arianespace yet again with one of its critical missions. Gaia is the 40th payload launched by Arianespace for ESA and the 25th dedicated to space science. The ties between Arianespace and ESA are now even stronger thanks to the full availability of our entire launch vehicle family. In 2013, Arianespace launched for ESA 3 payloads, one on each member of the launch vehicle family. Probave in May with Vega, ATV Albert Einstein in June with Ariane 5, and now Gaia with Soyuz. Next year promises even more scientific excitement with the last ATV, several Soyuz missions managed by ESA on behalf of the European Commission, namely Galileo and Copernicus, and I can disclose today that we will begin with Copernicus, in addition to IXV on Vega. So again, many thanks to ESA, to all its member states who funded the Gaia program, to its Director General Jean-Jacques Dordain, who follow us live from Paris this morning, and for sure to Mr. Alvaro Jimenez, Director of the Science and Robotic Exploration, who honors us with his presence today. As I said earlier, Gaia is a technological marvel, an achievement that should make Europe proud of its industry. Today, I want to congratulate Astrium, future Airbus Defence and Space, for leading the team in charge of designing and manufacturing Gaia under ESA's technical supervision. Bravo, Eric Béranger, bravo, Michael Making, for this outstanding achievement. May our cooperation remain as productive as it has been so far, Gaia being the 106th payload produced in Astrium's facilities and launched by Arianespace. In the season preceding Christmas, one takes stock of the achievements of the year while making strong resolutions for the year to come. For Arianespace, 2013 has been fully successful with our launch vehicle family, reaching unrivaled heights in terms of reliability, availability, and quality. The only regret we may have is that we did not have as many payloads available for launch this year as initially planned. But we will more than make up for this next year. Indeed, the launch manifest for 2014 is the busiest we've ever had, with 12 to 14 launches in preparation to deliver our order book. Believe me, we have our work cut out for us at the CSG next year. 2013 has been a banner year in terms of commercial orders, with 15 GTO satellites won for Ariane 5 and 4 satellites won for Vega. This explains why we have decided to order 18 additional Ariane 5 ECAs and 10 more Vegas. In 2013, we also improved the competitiveness of our offer. Thanks to an ESA program partly funded by French Future Investment Program, Ariane 5 ECA will offer more volumes under its flaring to our customers by mid-2015. And thanks to an Arianespace investment, a new filling hall will be online in 2015 as well, increasing our ability to prepare more satellites and to manage more campaigns in parallel. Before giving the floor to our partners, I would like to pay a special tribute to the Arianespace team, and especially to the individuals who played a role in today's achievement. Your commitment and professionalism have once again proven to be at the heart of Arianespace's success. You are entitled to a well-deserved rest. We will all certainly need it to meet the challenges of 2014. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Now you know Gaia has separated and we have acquired direct contact with the spacecraft, so you have put now Gaia in our hands. So this is the beginning of the science mission, and this is the beginning of a lot of work to come in the coming days and in coming months, where we are going to harvest the big amount of data that Gaia will provide to all of us. But I would like to use this opportunity to thank, of course, very warmly, Arianespace for taking us here, taking us Gaia to space, and also to CNES for making it possible, and to our Russian partners for an excellent job being done. This is great, it's a great moment for me, and I also would like to thank very warmly also to industry led by Astrium that designed and developed this beautiful mission. In addition, I would like to remember actually that our member states of ESA, they have been continuously supporting the science program, and I'm very thankful to them, because it's through that that we can deliver missions like Gaia. With respect to our teams, I would like to thank very heartfully our team, project team, Gaia project team, with the project manager Giuseppe Sarri, that have been working with this, and they are still working, so it's not the end for them, this getting into orbit. But we will soon also switch into real science operation. A lot of people are involved in that, which are in ESOC today, also in ESAC for the data preparation. And of course, I would like also to thank them for all the effort they have done. We have still a lot of steps to go through with Gaia, but this is a great moment that this launch was so successful, and we are in the right place in the right time. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as for the future, your task is not to foresee, but to enable. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry puts it very nicely, I think, into words, what Gaia is about and why we at Astrium are so proud to be as well at the heart of Gaia. As we have already heard today, Gaia is for the future. Gaia will push astrometry into another dimension and tell us more about where we come from and where we go. To enable science and to enable the future, this is what Astrium aimed for when leading Gaia as industrial prime contractor. Our engineers put into Gaia all their heart, all their ingenuity, expertise, ambition, the Astrium art of engineering. With Gaia, Astrium built the largest space instrument ever in ceramics, thus allowing Gaia to offer an exceedingly high stability for the science observations. With Gaia, Astrium built the biggest focal plane ever, 100 times better than today's common digital cameras. And for this masterpiece, this jewel of space hardware, Astrium gathered and led an industrial consortium made of 50 companies, 47 European and 3 Americans. So I would really like tonight to thank and to congratulate Arianespace and its Russian partners for, as usual, I would say, a perfect launch. As always, and I think all of us here, we feel it, coming here and seeing our satellite lifting off brings me huge emotion. So much effort, dedication, and ingenuity just in a few minutes. Many thanks as well to ESA and to the ESA member states for having entrusted Astrium to conceive and build Gaia, with specific and warm thanks to Jean-Jacques Dordain, who could not join us here today, to Alvaro Jimenez, and to the ESA project team led by Giuseppe Sari. Also, many thanks and congratulations to our suppliers. And, of course, I would like to congratulate my colleagues, the Gaia team at Astrium, led by Vincent Possignon. So many hours, night and day, but what a great job. On behalf of all of those who have contributed to this project, I wish Gaia a successful mission. And as the whole of us, I think, I'm really dying now to learn about the future breakthroughs that here tonight we contributed to enable. Thank you.
Eh bien, voici une journée qui commence bien.
So, today is a day that starts well and a year that ends well. So the conclusion was this beautiful launch with Soyuz in the Guyana Space Center. This is the 16th success in Guyana for Soyuz and the second one of this year. Gaia is in this space center since August, and this is the end of a campaign that is very successful, and this is thanks to a teamwork, and a great team, a team in Russia, a team in Europe, a team here in Guyana, and this launch shows that the partnership between Russia and Europe is a major success. And this is totally adapted to the needs of the European scientific community. I would like to congratulate CNES for this success, showing that expertise and thoroughness are very important qualities, and those qualities have been recognized by the President of the French Republic, who visited us recently. I would like to thank our Russian partners, the institutions, our partners from Arianespace, the ESA team for having set up this launcher. It is totally reliable, and this success is another evidence evidence of this. I would like to thank the teams of the Space Center, of Arianespace, of the CNES, and I don't want to forget the army and the police forces who are protecting us. They all proved they were able to cooperate together. And I would like to thank them for giving us total availability of the facilities at the highest level. So now our base is totally operational in Guyana. We have 3 launch systems, and we are ready for very high productivity scales for the future. So I also would like to associate Guyana in my thanks, represented here by the elected members representing a territory where this part of history can be written, and the CHG gets its momentum and exceptional conditions thanks to this country. And we were able to launch a very valuable satellite from here that will be brought to the Lagrange point, millions of kilometers away from Earth. I would like to thank Astrium for this technological jewel that will allow a breakthrough, I'm sure, in our knowledge of our galaxy. I would like to thank all the campaign teams for the good relationship we had during this past month, and I would like to underline their operational excellence. So 1 billion stars, celestial bodies, exoplanets will be censored and observed and mapped. I must underline that the Gaia program will also give us the opportunity of setting up an exceptional organization for data processing, which will go beyond technical borders or cultural borders. Specific centers have been set up with cooperative tools. One is in Toulouse, but there are other data centers in Villafranca, Cambridge, Geneva, and Barcelona. So there will be a very powerful data processing network. So a new era is opened in the scientific world, and Gaia will be a milestone in the history of astronomy. So there will be 6 billion operations per second that will be processed, which corresponds to more than 2,000 years of music, or CDs, if you wish. So this is at the scale of the universe, which will come to the reach of scientists. So I would like to thank the Gaia mission for trusting the CSG. The satellite is now on its way in their hands, and I hope Gaia will carry out its mission for the knowledge of our universe. I would like to thank all of you. I wish you a good end of this year, and I hope you will have a good rest after this. Thank you.
So Arianespace will be back here in CSG with all our colleagues and partners for 2 next launches, which will take place for the first one on January the 23rd. It will be an Ariane 5 mission, an Ariane 5 ECA, for a dual launch with ABS-2 for Asia Broadcast Satellite and Athena Fidus for Telespatio on behalf of CNES and ASI. And we will have a second Ariane 5 on February the 19th, and it will be for SES and Hispasat with Astra 5B and Amazonas 4A. I want to thank here SES for its flexibility after the delay we have had in 2013. So thank you very much to all of you. I wish you all a very happy festive season and a happy new year. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Over a short film now of all the Arianespace launches of this year, and then some final shots of the launch replay that occurred about an hour ago, we're going to say goodbye. But first, any last words, Timo?
I think it has been a beautiful day so far. It's the end of Gaia work for many groups. It's the beginning for other people, and so far everything has been going fine. I'm very happy.
Well, you should be. Congratulations to everybody. This is the 32nd Soyuz launch. There were 26 from Baikonur for Starsem. This is the second Soyuz launch of the year, all successful. And next year, Arianespace will launch the ATV-5 and Sentinel-1, 2 more science missions for the European Space Agency. Arianespace, since its beginnings, helping Europe and mankind in scientific matters and missions, allowing man to understand the universe. Arianespace also ending the year in style, a record year commercially for the company. Soyuz mission is done with Gaia. Gaia will now be controlled from the European Space Operations Center ESOC in Darmstadt, which we talked about, using the 2 ground stations in Cerberus in Spain and Perth in Australia. Scientific operations will be conducted from the European Space Astronomy Center, that's ESAC, in Spain. Gaia, 1 billion stars in 3D. That's the big news from here. That'll do it from us, from French Guiana, where Soyuz has once again delivered a new satellite beginning her life, Gaia, the star mapper for ESA, the European Space Agency. Congratulations to everybody who played a part, including you, Timo.
Thank you.
Next launch, as you heard, January 23rd. We'll be here. We hope you will be too. Happy holidays and a very good new year. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.